have a robust screening system when someone that's on the child registry got into this country. It begs the question, how many more of these vile people are walking around our streets, in our communities, around our schools, around our community centers, around our children?
For years, Canadians have been told one simple thing. Don't worry, everyone entering Canada is screened. But what if that promise isn't true? What if someone already convicted of sexually abusing a child, someone listed on a foreign sex offender registry, could still walk through our borders legally? Tonight's House of Commons debate raises uncomfortable questions. Not about politics, but about your safety, your community, and who is really being allowed into Canada. Because once you hear these answers, you'll start asking a question no one wants to answer. What happens next if the system keeps failing? Tonight, we break down what was said, what was avoided, and why this debate matters to every Canadian family, community, and neighborhood, because the real concern isn't politics. It's who is already here and who could be next.
Minister, how did Pakistani national Gulfam Hussain, who has a criminal conviction in the UK for adult sexual activity with a child family member 13 to 17 years old, get a visitor visa to come into the country?
Okay, well, thanks for that question. So all people applying to visit Canada are screened under our security regulations. When they get here, yes?
Mr. This vile rapist of a young girl is on the UK sex offender registry. So I ask you again, if they're screening, as you're suggesting, how did he get a visitor visa?
So again, Canadians are concerned when reports suggest someone who's committed serious crimes abroad has entered Canada. And that is exactly why Canada must continue to maintain and strengthen the screening and enforcement systems.
Minister, that's a talking point. I'm talking about an actual case of a rapist who came into this country, who from a G7 country, who was on the child abuse registry of the United Kingdom.
Okay.
Clearly giving me a talking point as an answer doesn't answer the question of how that person got into this country.
So IRCC can't disclose individual cases, but on this one it is public, and I will tell you what the court decision, because it's gone to court, so the decision is public, indicates the individual moved to Spain in 2020, then came to Canada on a visitor visa in 2023, did not disclose his criminal history on the visa application, and he has now been found inadmissible.
That was in a
and
national
is being deported.
Criminal past that entered Canada. This heading focuses on the specific case raised in Parliament and why it alarmed Canadians. During this House of Commons exchange, MP Kostas Menegakis questioned the Minister of Immigration about how a Pakistani national, Gulfam Hussain, was granted a visitor visa despite having a criminal conviction in the United Kingdom for sexual activity involving a minor. The MP emphasized that this individual was listed on the UK sex offender registry, making the situation especially serious. Menegakis repeatedly asked how such an individual could pass Canada's screening process. Instead of a direct explanation, the minister initially responded with general statements about security procedures. This back and forth exposed a clear disconnect between the question being asked and the answers being given. Key points need to understand. 1. The individual had a confirmed sexual offense conviction. 2. He was listed on a UK child abuse registry. 3. Initial responses avoided addressing the specific case. Screening promises under scrutiny. This heading focuses to explain the contradiction between official assurances and what occurred. The minister stated that all visitors to Canada are screened under security regulations. However, the MP challenged this claim directly, pointing out that if screening were truly effective, someone on a foreign sex offender registry should never have been approved. This exchange highlighted a critical concern: whether Canada's system depends too heavily on what applicants declare themselves rather than independent verification with allied countries. Key points need to understand. 1. Government insists screening is robust. 2. MP questioned whether checks go beyond self-disclosure. 3. No clear technical explanation was provided. What the court decision revealed. This heading outlines the official explanation disclosed during the hearing. After continued pressure, the minister cited the public court decision. According to that ruling, the individual moved to Spain in 2020 and applied for a Canadian visitor visa in 2023. He did not disclose his criminal history on the application. Once authorities became aware of his past, he was declared inadmissible and deportation proceedings began. While this clarified how he entered Canada, it raised deeper concerns about systemic vulnerability. Key points need to understand. 1. Criminal history was not disclosed. 2. Entry was granted based on incomplete information. 3. Deportation only occurred after discovery. How this affects Canada and Canadians. This heading explains the real-world impact beyond Parliament. For Canadians, this case goes beyond paperwork. It raises concerns about public safety, especially for families and children. It also weakens trust in immigration oversight and fuels anxiety about who may be living in local communities unnoticed. When screening failures occur, law-abiding immigrants also suffer as public confidence in the entire system erodes. Key points need to understand. 1. Fear for child and community safety. 2. Loss of trust in screening systems. 3. Increased public skepticism toward immigration policy.
That response, in general, was in a National Post story on October 6, 2025, a day that you were the Minister of Immigration in this country. Okay? So basically, does it all it take for someone's background check? Is it okay with you if someone just doesn't tick off the box that says, I have a criminal record as a proper screening for coming into the country?
So
Because a proper screen would have surely found this individual.
So Canada has a robust screening process.
I doubt it. This is not explaining it at all. Really? You have a robust screening system when someone that's on the child registry got into this country. It begs the question, how many more of these vile people are walking around our streets, in our communities, around our schools, around our community centers, around our children? Another case in point, Minister. 2 ISIS members, Ahmed and Mustafa El-Didi, came into this country in 2018. They moved to my community in Richmond Hill. Shortly after obtaining the Canadian citizenship, a month later, they were found by CSIS. That was found out that they were plotting a terrorist attack in the GTA. CSIS actually found a video, which we were able to obtain as well. It's very easy. It's on the internet, of one of them dismembering a prisoner with a sword in 2014. Can you explain how that person that your government led into this country got into my community, and it took CSIS many years to identify that indeed they were planning, only because somebody, I'm sure, whistleblowed that they were planning an activity, a terrorist activity, terrorist act on Canadians in the Greater Toronto area.
When one failure raises a bigger alarm, this heading explains why the debate expanded beyond a single case. During the hearing, MP Kostas Menegakis made it clear that the discussion was no longer limited to one individual entering Canada. He warned that if one serious offender was able to pass through the system, it raises legitimate questions about whether other high-risk individuals may have also entered without detection. By shifting the focus, this way, the MP framed the issue as a systemic concern rather than an isolated error, pushing the minister to address broader accountability instead of a single outcome. Key points need to understand. 1. Discussion expanded beyond one case. 2. Concerns raised about multiple undetected entries. 3. System-wide reliability was questioned. Extremist cases brought into the debate. This heading explains why national security became part of the discussion. Menegakis then referenced another case involving 2 individuals with ISIS ties who entered Canada in 2018 and later settled in his community of Richmond Hill. According to his statements, After they obtained Canadian citizenship, intelligence agencies identified evidence linking them to extremist propaganda and violent acts abroad. Key points need to understand. 1. ISIS-linked individuals cited as an example. 2. Entry and settlement occurred before identification. 3. Citizenship was obtained prior to discovery. Delayed detection by intelligence agencies. This heading explains concerns about reactive enforcement. The hearing highlighted that action was taken only years later, reportedly after intelligence agencies received additional information, possibly through whistleblowers. Menegakis argued that this indicates weaknesses in early-stage screening and coordination between agencies. Key points need to understand. 1. Threat identification happened years later. 2. Intelligence intervention came post-entry. 3. Preventative screening was questioned. Living among communities undetected. This heading explains why the MP emphasized location and proximity. Menegakis stressed that these individuals lived openly in Canadian communities, not in isolation. They were part of residential neighborhoods, which he cited to underline the seriousness of delayed detection and oversight. This framing was used to bring attention to how security failures can exist quietly for long periods before being addressed. Key points need to understand. 1. Individuals lived openly in communities. 2. No immediate red flags at entry. 3. Oversight failures were highlighted.
Area.
So the IRCC department is responsible for managed migration. Foreign nationals are all screened before coming into Canada. When things like that happen, we work with CBSA, we work with policing partners, we work in the system, and people are treated accordingly. And that's why you now have another bill in the legislature to deal with
Minister,
criminals.
You mentioned CBSA. CBSA
Yes.
officials testified before this committee that IRCC officials can overrule CBSA and issue permits even if CBSA has given a negative assessment. Why?
I'm sorry, who can?
The IRCC
Yes.
can overrule a decision by the CBSA. CBSA has found that the person is inadmissible. They get a negative assessment, and the IRCC has and does, on occasion, overrule the decision of the CBSA. Can you explain why your officials would overrule something like that? Why people would be allowed in our communities, on our streets?
Quick response, please.
Look, we're here to study C12, and it is part of detecting fraud. That is why we're here today, so that your committee is able to make best recommendation to the safety committee on if you need to make any recommendation on including in the bill regarding fraud, regarding whatever else you would like to make recommendations on.
Thank you, Minister.
Who has the final authority on admissibility? This heading explains who ultimately decides whether someone is allowed into Canada. MP Kostas Menegakis questioned why IRCC officials are able to overrule CBSA decisions when CBSA has already determined that an individual is inadmissible. He highlighted that CBSA assessments are based on enforcement and security expertise, making such overrides difficult to justify. The minister did not directly explain why or how these overrides occur. Key points need to understand. 1. CBSA issues security-based inadmissibility findings. 2. IRCC has authority to override CBSA decisions. 3. Overrides can occur even after negative assessments. 4. No clear justification was provided in the hearing. Security assessments versus departmental decisions. This heading focuses on the conflict between security warnings and administrative authority. Menegakis emphasized that CBSA exists to protect Canada's borders, while IRCC manages immigration processing. He questioned why security determinations could be set aside by administrative decisions, particularly when public safety is involved. The minister redirected the discussion rather than addressing the concern directly. Key points need to understand. 1. CBSA focuses on border enforcement and risk assessment. 2. IRCC handles immigration permits and approvals. 3. Security warnings may be overridden administratively. 4. Minister avoided explaining override criteria, ending the debate without answers. This heading explains how the exchange concluded. The minister stated that the committee was reviewing Bill C-12 and detecting fraud, implying that broader security concerns were outside the discussion scope. This effectively ended the questioning without resolving the issue of CBSA overrides. As a result, the hearing closed with unresolved questions. Key points need to understand. 1. Discussion shifted to legislative process. 2. Core admissibility concerns remained unanswered. 3. No transparency on override procedures. 4. Committee moved on without clarification. Tonight's House of Commons debate raised serious questions about how Canada screens visitors, residents, and future citizens, highlighting cases where individuals with criminal convictions or extremist ties were able to enter the country before concerns were identified. From the discussion around a convicted sex offender obtaining a visitor visa, to references of delayed intelligence action and situations where immigration officials may override border security assessments, the hearing exposed gaps between government assurances and real outcomes. These are not abstract policy issues. They relate directly to public safety, transparency, and trust in Canada's immigration and enforcement systems. If you believe Canadians deserve clear answers, stronger accountability, and informed discussion on what's happening inside Parliament, make sure to subscribe to the channel for continued coverage and breakdowns of important debates like this one, so you don't miss what comes next.